We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now.
And we're going to do everything we can to get us back on track and get us winning football games and getting back and competing for world championships.
It is your destiny.
The Knights of Den podcast with Sayre, Bedinger, and Brandon Keckler.
What is up, Broncos country? Welcome back to the Knights of Den podcast. Wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening, we hope you're having a great day. I'm Sayre Bedinger, here as always with Brandon Keckler. Brandon, another loss, but man, it's just great to be talking Broncos football together.
It is. As always, there's plenty to glean, plenty to be positive about. It's sad that we have to go to a place where we're like, we're the best looking 0-3 team I've ever seen, but baby. That's hopefully going to be the core of what we're saying. I think we're also sobering up to the possibility that, we may be in for a pretty rough year, but there are still positives to gain from it. There are still Star Wars awards to give out. Right. They're still fun to be had. So that's what we're here for.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, you can't take that away from us, dang it. We're going to keep those Star Wars awards, and we're going to keep on pressing on. Like you said, it could be a difficult season. The Broncos lost their third straight game this season, and dating back to last season, I believe it's 7 straight games. I believe it's 6 straight games with fewer than 25 points offensively. 3 games, no sacks, no turnovers forced. It's, if you want to talk about it being a little bit difficult to find positives, but we're going to unearth these gems. We're going to find them. We're going underneath the deep, dark ground, and we're going to find these gems for all of you. But, Brandon, I just want to talk about this game specifically against the Packers. I know we mentioned last week, first of all, we called our shot on a W, and
yeah, we did.
Just trying to will it into existence. It didn't happen, but
I even switched my Broncos D out on air. Switched my Broncos D in on air instead of my Browns D. But even though the Browns D got me, I think, like 8 points more, I still won this week. So it didn't cost me the match. But, rough. Yeah, the stat that's I just came across, which I guess was all over Twitter today from scrolling down my timeline, was that we're the first team and not just the first Broncos team, we're the first team in 50 years to go 3 games without a sack or a turnover.
Yeah, that's brutal. And especially with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and now Vic Fangio calling the shots on defense, like you would think even just one of those two things would happen basically by accident.
I would have called you a false prophet if you told me that prior to going into the season. I would have laughed at you hysterically if you would have tried to told me that we'd go 3 games and that Vaughn and Chubb didn't get a sack and we didn't force a turnover, when that was the whole thing going into this, was that Fangio was going to create this turnover heavy, fantasy scoring freaking defense. And for those things individually to not happen blows my mind. But for both of those things to have happened, that we have no sacks or turnovers, is just, I don't even know what to say. It's wild.
No. Yeah, it's baffling to me, especially considering the fact that you have, you're fully healthy pretty much on defense. We're only missing Bryce Callahan, and we've never seen the type of impact that he can make in a game setting. So for the most part, like, this defense is fully healthy. They have the new scheme in place. Like, Fangio's defense is supposed to be, we saw what it did for Khalil Mack. Year 1 with Khalil Mack in that defense, he just blew up. He was already great with the Oakland Raiders, but then going to Chicago and being part of that defense there, like, it just felt like the Fangio magic plus Khalil Mack's talent just mixed together to create this unstoppable combination, and they ended up leading the league in turnovers. So I can't for the life of me figure out why it's not happening for the Broncos, other than the fact that teams are just dinking and dunking down the field, and I don't quite know the answer to stopping it. And I don't know, Vic Fangio, he didn't seem to have a clear solution after the game, and even today at his press conference, like somebody asked him about it, and he asked the reporter, like, do you have a solution? Tell me, let me know when you do. So, I mean, it's just as frustrating for these guys as it is for us to watch. But man, especially having seen that 2015 game against the Packers where we were just all over Aaron Rodgers and held him to maybe his worst game that I've ever seen him play.
Didn't Rodgers say some snarky comment like in the post game of this game where he was saying something like, yeah, this is like the cleanest game I've ever left. Like, I don't even think they really touched me. And I'm just like, it broke my heart.
The dude was talking about going home that night and enjoying some scotch and watching a little bit of Eagles tape. Like he was daydreaming about his evening after the game. It's like just a walk in the park, and that's what hurts the most is like how easy this win was for him. I mean, Vic Fangio is familiar with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's played against him the last 4 years in Chicago, so it's not like Fangio doesn't know how this guy operates. He's seen him 8 times if he's been healthy for all those games, he's seen him 8 times. But man, it's tough. But I think, like you said, there are quite a few bright spots to take away.
Right. So what's the positive that we can glean from this?
Well, I think that it's somewhat encouraging to look at this from the fact that the Broncos really just got in their own way in this game. And I mean, you could pretty much say that for any team's loss. I mean, you can justify a loss any way that you want to, but just look at over the course of this game. I mean, if the Broncos start to do anything good, and this has been the case in all 3 games, but if they start to do anything good, it seems like they follow it up with something really bad right after. So you have two drives of 15-plus plays resulting in a score. And they only did that one time all of last year. They did it twice in this particular game. And then you follow that up with Joe Flacco getting strip sacked in a 2-minute drill on, within the 10-yard line. And that right there it's a 7-point swing at the very least. I mean, you're looking at if Emmanuel Sanders doesn't get called for that stupid holding penalty, and then you follow that up with, Joe Flacco's strip sack, you're taking what could have been a Broncos 17-0 lead potentially into a 17-0 lead for the Packers. So it's really a 14-point swing in that way. And so just things like that continually happen. The coming right out of halftime, Noah Fant fumbles. You get a touchdown from Phillip Lindsay, you miss the extra point, and then you proceed to throw an interception when you finally get some positive momentum going.
Just a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, and I think that this was the worst game that Joe Flacco has played so far. I mean, it's just a 3-game sample, but what did you see from him? I mean, I felt like he got rattled a little bit early, and I felt like he just kind of lost rhythm.
Yeah, it was definitely the most groans for me watching him this time. Kind of there with my friends, especially I think at the timings of the drives where I felt like we were like kind of catching up or like tied, where we were in the game. And for some of those turnovers, it was just like, come on, Flacco. But yeah, I don't really have a specific professional assessment except for that I was a pretty staunch defender the past 2 games. That it's like, even when people would message me like, well, that's what you get when you have Joe Flacco as your quarterback. I'm like, yeah, but he hasn't been the problem. Right. In this game, it actually felt like he was not that he was the most major problem, but he was definitely one of the most major reasons. Some of his decision making led to that loss. At some crucial times, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of run back to what you said to me after the game, and I think this is kind of where a lot of fans are getting lost lately. It's in the fact that there is so much to be encouraged about right now that it's hard to see the forest through the trees. And you texted me after the game, I feel like I've never been more happy with an 0-3 team.
Yeah, right.
And I kind of agree with you on that because it sucks to be winless, especially when you've got the undefeated and seemingly unstoppable Kansas City Chiefs at the top of the division. But, I mean, there's a lot of teams struggling throughout the AFC, and if the Broncos can string something together here, I mean, they've got some very winnable games going forward. I don't think that they showed in this game against the Packers that they are inept or that they're, beyond fixing or that they have issues that can never be corrected, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. I think that there was just a lot of ill-timed mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and for me, like, I'm definitely more worried about the defense than I want to be. We all are, Fangio, and I think the defense included. There's something I don't understand about that situation that's a bit above my pay grade when it comes to figuring out why they're not performing and why the sacks aren't there in the turnovers. But I'm actually having fun still watching our offense. I feel like a lot of times where in the past 2-3 seasons, we just stalled out sooner. And these drives were picking up first downs. There's some third down plays where I'm just like, in the past, I was like, especially again the last 2 or 3 years, I was apprehensive, like, oh gosh, they're not going to get it here, please get it, guys, and they didn't get it. But with this team, it's like, all right, boys, let's go, 3rd and 2, and like I have like a new, I can feel my own amped up confidence that like we have the pieces to pick up this third, and then they're coming through more often, and they're doing more things creatively that are getting me excited for our offense to come on the field. I'm not dreading like, oh gosh, this is going to be another struggle just moving the ball. I feel like we're imposing our will offensively, which is something we've talked about a lot in the past, of an offense that just goes out and imposes his will. Now, I don't think that Flacco is that kind of quarterback that you and I have talked about that we really love, where he's going to go out there and just absolutely impose his will over the defense. I think that he needs a lot of help from the weapons and the pieces, but he also, even despite this rough game, has looked better than what we've had at quarterback. So those things make me excited. Where some of the problems I felt like were bigger problems in the past seem to be trending in a better direction. I feel like we're a team that, like, even though, I don't know what the heck's going on with our defense, I feel like our offense is like one of those teams that if they click in the ways they have been inconsistently not doing so, if they click in a couple of the games this year, like they can put up like 40-something points. Like I just get that feel. I mean, when you look at last week was the good analogy where they got 27 first downs or something like that, and then the Patriots that smoked the Dolphins like 43-7 also got that same amount of first downs. I feel like if we were able to again convert in the red zone, which we talked about a lot last week, and just not have such an inconsistent game, which I think will happen as they get more comfortable not only together but in Scangarella's offense. I feel like we're going to put up some high-scoring games this year, but I don't know what to say about our defense. I'm at a loss about that.
Yeah, I feel the same about that. And just to add on to your point about the offense, just to put some numbers to what you're saying, the confidence that you're talking about, especially on third downs, sustaining drives. I'm going to give you some stats here, some figures for the Broncos over the course of 3 games, not just this game against the Packers, but they are number 2 in the NFL right now in time of possession per drive. So they're averaging holding the ball 3 minutes and 25 seconds every time they get the ball. So we're not going 3 and out. To your point about converting third downs, I mean, we're averaging for sure not going 3 and out. Secondly, we're averaging 7.6 plays, so 8 plays per drive. That's number 1 in the NFL right now. You give an offense 8 plays every single time they touch the ball. I mean, I've seen many scoring drives in my time watching football that go way fewer than 8 plays. So, and then the scoring percentage that we have right now is middle of the pack as far as the NFL is concerned. 35.7% of all Broncos drives end in a score. So the problem is right now is they're not converting some of those scoring opportunities into touchdowns, and then also a couple of ill-timed turnovers in their red zone area that has really given them issues. But they're moving the ball effectively, and I think that confidence that you're talking about on third down feels like to me, when I'm watching, I'm not thinking, okay, how are they going to convert this 3rd and 2? I'm thinking, who are they going to get it to? Like, who's the play going to be designed for? I feel like they have that kind of confidence as a unit already. So, like you said, to see it come together, I wouldn't be surprised if this offense starts clicking really soon here, because we've seen the signs. That's for sure.
There's always 5 solid choices of who it could be. Sanders, Sutton, Lindsey, Freeman. That's where I feel like we have a handful of solid options where you can't focus on one specific thing. So Scangorilla's using the pieces. He's spreading it around. He's not going to any one thing too much. You even see that really evenly in the run game. Obviously, we had a big game from Phillip Lindsay, but up until that point where he got those 2 touchdowns, it's been Freeman that's been the one that's been doing the most work successfully over the first 2 weeks. So I feel like he's utilizing the weapons, I think, in the right way. Like even some of the tosses that they're doing to Lindsey, I'm liking how they're kind of moving in that direction of doing a little bit more of that. Sanders has been playing really clutch, and Sutton's been, they've been throwing up some 1v1s against Sutton. They're using their pieces how they need to use them, and so that's where, again, if we can play more consistently, and if we can get if they can somehow, I don't know if you're going to fix the defense and make them elite this year. I think that's maybe a position I'm very comfortable with surrendering, that like we thought Fangio could come in and create an elite defense out of this. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think that starting with week 1, I don't know whether it was Gruden that created that first blueprint and then they've just been kind of using it / slightly modifying it, but they figured out a way to pick apart our weaknesses from the get, and we've been continually exploited for pieces that we just don't have on our roster. So I think that if the defense can batten down the hatches and play better than they've been, and at least from our positions of strength with our sack artists, get their, kick them in the freaking butt and get them going, whatever needs to happen for that. If that can happen, and then we can actually score in the red zone, dude, I think we can still finish this season like 8-8. I think still those are big ifs. Defense needs to play not great, but good. They haven't been playing good. They need to just play good. And then offense just needs to turn those first downs and those long drives into more touchdowns. And I think we finish 8-8 and either right outside the playoffs or right within the playoffs. And it's looking like with the AFC being pretty weak and losing a lot of games, that 8-8 might get you in a wild card spot.
Yep. That could happen. So I'm with you 100% on that. I think that it's still time to be patient. There's no need to rush to, hey, let's call it quits on this season. Even though I know a little bit later we're going to talk quite a bit about the future, or we're going to talk a little bit about the future, but I don't think it is time to quit on this season. So I'm not going to do it. I know you're not going to do it. But let's evaluate those good pieces, those positive pieces, and let's see how they can be implemented going forward. And
absolutely,
Brandon, it's time for us to deliver some awards to those. A lot of these positive pieces, they deserve recognition. So we're going to divvy out some of our awards like we have been. This is the 3rd straight week of these Knights of Den awards being given out. And as always, you and I both have a chosen one award. Do you want to explain to the listeners who maybe haven't heard yet what these awards mean for these players? They are, one of a kind.
So we do Star Wars themed game awards. And we start with the chosen one, which is basically the game MVP. And then we have a list of about, I want to say like 8 to 10 other awards that we can give out. But each week, Sayre and I choose 2 each, and we don't tell each other what we're going to choose. We just kind of debut it live on the podcast. So, chosen one this week. What's your choice, Sayre?
My chosen one this week, this is the second time this guy's won the award for me. Courtland Sutton is my chosen one. I know he didn't have the biggest game statistically. I know week 1 was his first career 100-yard game. He didn't reach that in this game despite that huge catch late in the game on a big third down play, which was just unbelievable. Just a great play to keep the Broncos in the game at that point. But he had a clear touchdown earlier in the game on the touchdown drive for Phillip Lindsay, actually, the second one. I believe that was in the third quarter. He had a clear touchdown that was missed by Joe Flacco, who just threw the ball off his back foot, threw it out of bounds. Sutton actually made an incredible catch, but he didn't get his feet or knee in bounds or anything. And then he had another touchdown on a kind of a little back shoulder play, or like I don't know if it was an out route or whatever in the end zone. But he had another touchdown that was nullified by the officials, saying that he was out of bounds when I thought he snuck his foot in, and the Broncos already challenged, so they couldn't challenge again. So a couple of phantom plays there, but man, Sutton is looking like a complete player all over the place. And I'm evaluating every play of his, not just the plays that count on the stat sheet. Yeah. He looks like an absolute star.
Yeah, I love it. I thought we were both going to go with the same player, which my choice is our boy Phillip Lindsay, who just went beast mode, dude. Went right back into, the Phillip Lindsay that we saw last year. That just, to the Colorado folk, it wasn't surprising, but to the rest of the NFL that didn't know who this kid was, and he came onto the scene and just rocked it. And so it seems like we got back to, Phillip Lindsay's stud mode, whereas the first 2 weeks were he didn't play badly by any stretch. I think he's had a pretty good yards per carry, pretty decent so far in the first two games. But Phillip Lindsay was a stud in this game, so I'm giving it over to Phil. Yeah,
just vintage effort from him. I like that award. I like that a lot. He deserves it, that's for sure.
So then we do the two elective awards. So which award are you choosing to give out of your two?
I'm excited. I've been excited about this one. I was thinking about it earlier today. This is my first Han and Chewie award of the year, and I'm giving this Han and Chewie award, which is given to the duo that complemented each other in the game the best. And I'm giving it to two guys specifically for one play, Dalton Reisner and Phillip Lindsay on the touchdown play. They get the Han and Chewie award. I mean, can't you just picture Chewie picking Han Solo up and throwing him into the end zone for a touchdown?
Dude, yeah,
I can totally see it. So that's got to be the most impressive 1 yard touchdown I've ever seen. I mean,
and we got a breakdown of that on the Twitter page today of the Execute the Order 66. It's not just Dalton blocks. Sometimes it's him just, what did he say when he it's like wrestling something back home or something like that. He tweeted that. I was laughing. It was so good.
Just like wrestling the old cattle.
Yeah,
man. That
he
dude
wrestled him in.
He's just so cool, man. Everything about him, I love what he's bringing to the table, and I love that he picked number 66. I know it's kind of an ugly number, but, dude, it works so perfectly for what we're doing here with the Order 66 and just what he's all about, of just destroying people out there. And, man, he just picked that. He picked Phillip Lindsay up. One Colorado boy picks another Colorado boy up and throws him into the end zone. Just, you can't draw it up any cooler than that. It was just an awesome play.
Yeah, it was, and that was one of mine. It was the Han and Chewie award going to Reisner and Lindsay. I had to give Lindsay two. I was like, dude, he's my chosen one, and I'm giving him a Han and Chewie award.
Nothing wrong with that.
So I think you said it all right there. Nothing else needs to be added to that. And then, just in case we have the same one for this one too, I'm gonna go first. So I'm excited. If not, I'm excited even if it is yours too. But I'm giving the very first Ahsoka award.
Oh yeah.
Okay. How is that? Are you giving an Ahsoka award, or are you doing something else?
I had thought about it. I have two options actually.
Okay.
So,
okay. Yeah. All right. So I'm giving it to Devontae Bosby.
Okay. Yes. That was one of them.
Dude, the boy Bosby. Okay. So Ahsoka Tano, for those who don't know, she was Anakin's apprentice in like a CGI cartoon show, and most of the fan base really rejected her initially and didn't think too much of her. So then she ended up becoming a total fan favorite because she proved her worth and proved that she was awesome. And so anytime there's a player who's a riser and kind of like puts out like a surprising performance, that's the Ahsoka award. So I'm giving that to Bosby, man. He's looking like he's bringing up the bottom of the cornerback depth to where, we're kind of worried about Yidam. We don't have Callahan. We don't know how long Chris Harris is going to be. And it's looking like we might have a diamond in the rough with Devontae Bosby. And I'm excited about it. He's playing like a beast yesterday.
I can't believe Sunday's game was really the first time he's played all year. And Fangio, when asked about that one, was just like, we just have to put him on the field. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. And look at him. He came in. Those 2 third down pass breakups were awesome. Exactly what the team needed. So I loved that. That was one of the ones that I had selected. The other one that I was thinking about, because I watched the game tape again today, was giving out a Lando Award, given to the game's most sneaky good player. That was to Bradley Chubb. And that's going to go against a lot of what we've talked about, is because the pass rush hasn't quite been there. Right. But, dude, this guy, 3 tackles for loss. He was a beast against the run, and he actually did. If you watch the game back, he actually did get a couple really good pressures on Aaron Rodgers, flushed him out of the pocket a time or two. And so Chubb is playing hard, man. He's busting things up at the line of scrimmage, and he's been sneaky good from the perspective of, people are expecting the sacks, people are expecting those great pass rush plays, the strips and everything like that. But man, he played a great game against the Packers, especially against the run. So
that's a good answer. There were a few moments where noticeably I saw that he was still getting work done. Again, whether it's against the run or sometimes just like getting back there and just handling his tackle, but like by the time he did, the quarterback had rolled away and done something else elsewhere. But it's like he's inches, man. He's getting inches away from getting some things done. So hopefully we close that gap a little bit. But dude, Chubb's been doing some things.
Yeah, he's close. So we're on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I don't even know what to think at this point. I mean, you can't guarantee anything, but obviously, and you and I were talking about this, I think this is a pretty straightforward deal here. So we got Minshew Mania, Gardner Minshew, who's one of the most fun stories in the NFL right now. Yep. Him and his mustache and his crazy bandanas. You got him coming into the Mile High City. You got the Jalen Ramsey trade rumors swirling. He stayed home sick from work today, et cetera, et cetera. Things aren't well in Jacksonville right now, other than Minshew. And I think the Broncos have to just strip away all the narratives and look at this game for what it is, man. You got a rookie quarterback, a 6th-round pick, coming into your house, and you're looking to get win number 1 of the year. I mean, does it get any simpler than that?
No. And
I don't even.
You know what? It's the perfect recipe, kind of like what you were saying earlier. It's the perfect recipe for, if we need to, Sonic's got to hit those little, speed pads, pew, and just accelerate and pick up some momentum, dude, to be able to go through that loop and finish the level. Okay, so this is what the Broncos need. Is we need go out there and unleash a Jacksonville beating. On Minshew. We need to humble the Minshew mania and take it down a notch and bring him back down to earth. And I think that this is one of those kind of like make or breaks for maybe not in the grand scheme of things, but as far as like there's not a lot of optimism in the fan base at all. There's not a lot of I imagine it's kind of tough in that locker room trying to keep guys from just caving in and losing that locker room and things like that. Even though I do think a lot of the players respect Fangio more so than most new coaches. This could be one of those games, man, that just really crushes morale. It's one thing, the Raider game was tough, but it was week 1. So like, all right, it's just 0-1. Then we go into the Bears, and it's like, all right, well, the Bears were the best defense in the NFL last year. So that was tough. We played the best defense, and we almost came out on top. And then we play against Aaron Rodgers, so it's like in a place we've never won. But if we go into Jacksonville against a 6th-round freaking quarterback and we still like don't get some sacks and turnovers and lose our 4th game and in home against the Jaguars, I think you may see just that may be Bane breaking Batman's back. that may be too much for us to handle. We might fall into a cave, and unlike The Dark Knight Rises, we will probably not climb out of that cave this year. That might be a demoralizing loss if that happens.
I agree 100%. I mean, this is the type of game where, like, you look at it on paper just like we just did, the simplistic view of it. If you lose a game at home to a rookie 6th-round QB, like, and to go 0-4, no less, like, you're talking about, I mean, every fan is going to be wondering how, I mean, they already are, let's be honest about it. But every fan's going to be wondering, okay, are we going to sell at the trade deadline? Like, is everyone on the table? And I hate talking about that this early in the year. Like, this is the Denver freaking Broncos, dude. We're not sellers to the trade deadline. Like, I know we traded DT last year and talking about trading some other guys and everything, but, like, I'm sick of that, man. I'm so sick of that talk. And I don't want this team to just blow everything up. I don't want them to blow it up. I think that there are some ways that they could improve by trading some guys, but, like, we're not trading Von Miller. Like, get off it. And but if they lose at home to Jacksonville and they can't get to the quarterback and they can't, convert in the red zone and et cetera, they continue this path that they're on, like, that talk is going to heat up significantly.
And I mean, we could go 0-16, and I still don't think we should trade Von Miller.
100%.
I still think he's got enough good years to where he also really wants to be here. That I think a lot of people are kind of playing Madden with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know who is considering that. I don't think anyone should be considering that. Now, you go 0-4, 0-5. And we're struggling with the reality of that Chris Harris might not be resigning next year.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is a considerance as far as a team that's a contender that's hurting at corner, where we could maybe get something for Chris Harris. Do I want that to happen? No. But that is about 100 times more so much more worth talking about than trading Von Miller.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because Harris has 1 year left on his deal, like you mentioned,
and might be gone at the end. And if we can get something for him for the future, when he's not going to be competing for a playoff spot this year, and if he doesn't intend on staying around and being a part of Fangio's defense in the long term, we might as well get something for him. None of that applies to Von.
No, it doesn't. Von's a different type of beast. He's kind of like a Larry Fitzgerald, our version of that, where you just don't trade that guy. You don't trade that guy who is a centerpiece of the franchise, John Elway's first draft pick, Super Bowl MVP, he should have been defensive MVP at least once. You just don't trade that guy. And he's 30 years old, and people are acting like he's 38. Like, that's part of what ticks me off. And it's not just because I'm about to be 30 this year. It's because of the fact that we've seen so many pass rushers play really well into their mid to late 30s, especially recently. Like, look at Terrell Suggs. He's still playing well with Arizona. Cameron Wake still playing well with the Tennessee Titans. I mean, these guys are playing well into their late 30s, and Von Miller is one of those rare breeds of athlete that you stick it out with him for as long as you can, because if he goes to another team, well, we're going to be the same fan base now that wanted to trade him for draft picks, then complaining about, well, Von Miller's getting 16 sacks with such and such a team, and, we should be having that. We should have never traded him in the first place, blah, blah, blah. You can never please this fan base unless you're winning games. And I think if the Broncos start winning games, fans will start shutting up about all these stupid ideas they're having. No offense. If you're one of those fans who wants that, no offense, but that's a stupid idea. And
I'll start hearing your Von trade talk in about 5 years.
Yeah.
And not any sooner. Just personally. Obviously, I'm not the GM, so, who knows? They could be laughing at us in like 3 weeks when all of a sudden there's a blockbuster trade and Von gets traded. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think anyone's considering. I don't think Von wants that. I don't think Elway wants that. And I don't think Fangio wants that. And if none of those three want that, it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. But yeah, so we need to bounce back. Jacksonville Jaguars, we need to do something to really just jumpstart this momentum, jumpstart this team, give us something positive to look forward to. I think there's a lot of like bitterness that they just need to unleash. And whatever, them being an 0-3 team and feeling like that they're much better than that. This is the game where you go in and you just absolutely destroy and you shock the league. And they still don't take you seriously, but you just go and beat the frickin' Jags down and you give yourself your own kind of inner boost and pickup to go forward knowing, see guys, this is what we're capable of. They need it for themselves. Otherwise, an 0-4 and losing to the Jags at home, yeah, it's going to open up another freaking black hole, and I don't know if we'll recover this year from that.
I don't either. It reminds me of last year's game in Arizona where Von Miller made the bold declaration during the week, and it just feels that same way. They can get on, and they got on a run last year after that game. They won those couple of games against the Steelers and the Chargers when no one thought they would, and then Sanders got hurt and Harris got hurt, and all of a sudden, well, you lose your best player on offense and your second best player on defense, and now you can't win those marginally close games anymore. So I think this is a similar type of moment in the season where you're like, okay, this is a turning point for better or for worse. If we lose this game, we're a laughing stock. If we win this game, there's a chance. So I hope they win this game. I mean, goodness, I can't imagine they lose this game.
So right now we're sitting at we're a bottom 5 team. Yeah. And so, a lot of people are already starting to kind of project a bottom 5 pick to us. Now, I think it's well within the realm of possibility and potentially a certainty, depending on what happens in this game coming up, that we're going to be probably a bottom 10, have a bottom 10 pick or top 10 pick, however you want to say it. So say we're in the top 5, say we're in the top 10, looking ahead to the 2020 draft. What are some guys that you're looking at right now? Guys that you've scouted or guys that are kind of coming up in these first few weeks of, I think we're 4 weeks into the college football season, right? Yep. So what are some guys that you're looking forward to that are potentials that could help fill some of these gaps and help get us back on the right track next year if we have a top pick?
Yeah, I mean, if you're picking that high and like you said, they're bottom 5 team in the league right now. If you're picking that high, I think you have to be looking at premier positions, meaning quarterback, offensive tackle, and pass rusher. And obviously we have 2 really great pass rushers, so I think you're kind of narrowing things down to quarterback and offensive tackle. There's really, and this year's wide receiver class too, by the way, dude, is ridiculous. And I know you know that because we talked about it for fantasy purposes. But the speed in this class at receiver is so ridiculous that you may consider that as well, just because it's such an important piece now. I mean, the Broncos have some really nice pieces offensively. That it really boils down to, do you believe in Drew Lock as the future of your team? Yeah. And that's why I wrote the article that somebody criticized as clickbait on Predominantly Orange after the game that said we could be inching closer to the Drew Lock era. Because I'm thinking in my head, okay, well, if we're not going to win games, when Drew Lock is healthy, it only makes sense to see him play. Because you can't make an educated pick in the draft if you don't see Drew Lock play. So we know John Elway loved Justin Herbert last year out of Oregon, and boy, that dude is playing out of his mind this year. I wasn't really that impressed with him last year. Under 60% completion percentage, kind of struggled to go through his reads and progressions, was kind of locked in on one guy and then looked lost after that fact. But dude, this year he is reading the field like a true pro. He's completing like 77% of his passes through 4 games, and Oregon's already played Auburn, who's top 10, and Stanford, who's always tough on the road. So Herbert's another guy that I would be looking at. But, I mean, offensive tackle, Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. Obviously, I love the Hawkeyes, but, I mean, this dude is just an absolute monster. And then Andrew Thomas is the other top tackle that people are saying could be a top 5 pick. He's out of Georgia, and he's blocking for the blind side of Jake Fromm, the quarterback there, who is incidentally another QB that I really like. So you've got a draft that I think has 3 franchise QBs in for sure 3 in Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama, Justin Herbert, Oregon, and then Jake Fromm from Georgia. And then you've got 2 guys who are going to be true superstar tackles in the NFL, and Tristan Wirfs from Iowa and Andrew Thomas of Georgia, and then just a bunch of wide receivers who could be wide receiver 1. So I you know, and you're the NFL draft expert here, and but I get what you're saying about I think it's ridiculous that people gave you any kind of flack for saying that, because I think if Flacco isn't flying through this season, and we come to that point where Drew Lock can come back from the IR designated to return, right? Isn't that what we're waiting for? Yep. You got to see what you have in the kid. And to be honest, you know, I lean more in the realm of, I'm hearing you talk quarterbacks, and I'm like, dude, we need to get, if there's some offensive tackles in that neck of the woods, we need to get an offensive tackle. I'm also looking at the fact, I don't know what the cornerback class is looking like. But you know, struggling at that without Chris Harris is going to be something that I don't want the no fly to just completely go away. You know, I know we're going to have to move into a 3.0 in the days where we have a good secondary again after Chris Harris. But man, dude, so I don't want it to be quarterback. I'm hoping these other teams are grabbing quarterbacks, which allow some of the maybe a premier offensive tackle to fall to us. But I think especially with, you know, if we don't leave this season and Bowles has a total turnaround, which I don't think anyone's expecting, we need this O-line to improve, especially with the fact that we're looking like our identity can strongly be a primary rushing team. So looking at it from that perspective, I'm really hoping that we get enough time this year to see almost like what we saw when we benched Plummer for Cutler, and got to just see that he had the tools and that we could do some things and he could create some exciting plays and things like that, but he was still, you know, needed to develop. I'm fine with that. Like, we just need to see that Locke's got enough to where we're like, okay, you know, there's potentially something here that we need to develop, and we don't need to get an early round quarterback. We may need some quarterback depth depending on, I don't know what we're gonna do with Flacco if we end up going with Drew, but I want to see what we have in Drew Lock, and I think that as soon as he returns, if we're like statistically our probability is like any less than 5%, you know, or something along those lines, where we're probably not going to make the playoffs, dude, I don't think anyone should critique the decision to start Lock and see what we have in Lock. Right, because the argument that I keep getting from people just based on the headline is, well, you're saying that Joe Flacco is the problem, and he's not been the problem, and literally in the
which is not what you're saying.
No, it's the opposite. I've said, you know, Flacco's played pretty well, although he's coming off of his worst start as a Bronco. You know, it's not about him playing well enough, or it's not about him being the problem. It's about, like you said, figuring out if Locke is your future. And I believe that he is, because you know me, and we talked about this a number of times. Like, I thought he was easily worthy of that 10th overall pick that we had. So I would have banged that much on him at least, and so I know that the front office didn't necessarily do that. They got him with a second round pick, but I mean, the point remains, if you get a guy with that kind of talent, you got to see what he's got to give you. Yeah. So
I like the idea of the wide receiver too.
Yeah. Yep.
I like the, because I'm thinking, you know, we're still kind of hoping that Hamilton pulls through as like a wide receiver 3 kind of guy. And I think that's still potential on the table. He's done some things good this year. He seems like he has elevated his play, but I mean, Sanders is 31. So we're going to need someone to pair up with Sutton, and not just a guy that's kind of good enough to be our wide receiver 3 that we're hopeful might be able to get to wide receiver 2, but maybe somebody that's, where we get back to having a tandem, a really good tandem. And I know we're kind of quasi having that right now with Sanders, but again, we need some youth. So it might be the kind of the perfect transition to bring somebody in, either like in Sanders last year or something like that, somebody that can come in and develop and then take over, kind of like Sutton did underneath Demarius, or what the original plan kind of was before we traded Demarius to kind of bring him in, and then Sutton had to step up in his rookie year. But I could see us bringing in a good wide receiver, especially kind of like maybe a good speed guy. I'd be excited about that. Adding some more offensive pieces to what's looking like it has the potential to be a really exciting offense.
Yeah, and I think with Drew Lock and what he brings to the table, he's a guy who you can move the pocket. I mean, right now we're not seeing that from Joe Flacco, which is infuriating because it's limiting our downfield plays. So Drew Lock, you can move the pocket outside on play action and bootlegs and things like that, and he can extend plays and allow for your receivers to get open on some longer routes. And we're just not, the Broncos haven't been able to do that, and people are blaming the offensive line when it really has a lot more, in my opinion, to do with Flacco's
mobility.
Yep, 100%.
Or lack thereof.
Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly. So I haven't seen that from Scangarello yet, and that's the most confusing thing because we know that's a hallmark of this offense is those bootleg plays.
It's not only Locke's strong arm that gets you excited about what we can do with those kind of receivers, but also just having more mobility to be able to stretch it out and do some more things in play action.
Yeah, exactly. And even with guys like Deshaun Hamilton, like he's a crafty route runner. So you think about it, like he's not always doing his best work getting open in 2 seconds. He's doing some of his best work getting open in 3 seconds. And in order to get 3 seconds,
we need to be able to stretch it. Yep.
So I just think Locke could even more so than Flacco, he may even be able to give us a better overall picture of what this offense brings to the table that we haven't seen just yet, because Flacco is, as good of a pocket passer as he is, as strong of an arm as he is, and as well as he's done through 3 games compared to what a lot of people thought. I think that we're not seeing the fullness of Scangarello's offense because of the inability to move around.
And can I just say something real quick? One thing that is kind of I don't know the best way to describe it. It's shocking to me to think it, and it also is exciting, and it helps put how I feel about this season in perspective and why I'm not worrying as much as previous years. I don't want the coaching staff to go anywhere. I like what I'm seeing in Scangarello's offense.
Yep.
I trust Vic as a D coordinator, and that's what's so weird. And you hear Vic say it in like every postgame conference, like these have been some of the strangest games, like which almost sounds like an excuse, but at the same time, like the dude's seen a lot, and he's like, we're getting in some weird situations, and like they're not regular games, and so it's like seeing his offense, seeing the creativity of his offense, seeing the first downs, seeing what he's doing with the running game, seeing how he's utilizing our offense, it does get me excited to see what the Drew Lock Scangarello offense is going to be. And then take Fangio. He didn't turn the Bears D into a freaking stud D in year 1. It took him 3 years, and then he made him into the most elite team in the league. So in that same way, like I want to see this defense grow with Fangio. I want to see this offense grow with Scangarello. I want to see where this team goes from this point forward. I've seen enough already to be encouraged, and that's what's so weird about being 0-3 and feeling that way. This past 2 years, whether it's offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, we've always had issues with, I don't know if this is the guy. I don't know if this is the right offense. I don't know if they're utilizing our pieces correctly. And there's always been, and that's for me and you that are pretty optimistic, let alone some of the more cynical, pessimistic, skeptical fans that just wanted to fire everybody every week. I don't want to fire anyone. I don't want to fire anyone in that coaching staff.
No, I think you're right. I want to see 3 years minimum out of this crew, and look at the dividends that's paying for a team like the San Francisco 49ers, who bought into the plan that Kyle Shanahan had. I mean, they look like one of the most explosive offenses in the league, and I doubt that most casual NFL fans could name 3 players on that offense. including George Kittle, who's maybe the best tight end in the NFL. I don't even know how many fans even know who George Kittle is. But, I mean, look at what patience has done for that team there. I mean, you struggle through the injuries. You struggle through the inconsistencies, wondering if that's all going to work out. And you look at those positive nuggets, like the game that they played against us last year when they schemed points with no talent offensively other than Kittle.
Yep.
And so I think the same applies to the Denver Broncos. Give this crew time. I'm not saying necessarily 3 years, because 3 years is an eternity for Broncos fans. But I'm saying give it more than 3 games. Let's see how this develops over the course of time. Let's see what we can do with the young QB.
Yeah. We go 7-9, we go 8-8, something like that, but we kind of blossom late and show some serious potential. Like, I'm going in the next season freaking stoked.
Yeah, fired up.
To build off that. That we finally have good coaches set in place. We got a quarterback we like. We got a tandem of rushers. We've got some major pieces. So like I think that's kind of what we're hoping for at this point, is to just see some late blossoming, that the system's starting to click. It took them some time for all these separate pieces to get on the same page, but that we're moving, we're developing some momentum, people are buying into the system works. We don't have the talent necessarily to fully utilize it, but we're going to add to the core pieces that we have, and I'm excited about that.
Agreed. What do you think, just to close off this segment, what do you think is the one thing the Broncos are missing right now, that if you could say we add this one thing right now, boom, we're competing with Kansas City?
A really good inside linebacker. That's the first thing I think of when I think of our weaknesses, primarily with the defense, is all the things that they're doing to us to limit our use of Vaughn and Chubb, is that they can get away with all these like short passes up the middle and being able to kind of chip away at us through the run. I think if we had just an absolute dominant middle linebacker that's also like a coverage linebacker, also like a Patrick Willis. If we had a Patrick Willis in the middle, I think it would totally shift this people's schemes from what they're doing against us, and that would just eliminate that type of approach, which would shift the way they play us, which would make them have to factor more against our pass rush and do different, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think I articulated that perfectly, but I feel like if we had that piece, I think that they wouldn't be able to beat us how they've been beating us. And if they're not beating us how they're beating us, then we have a better pass rush. We're creating more turnovers. Yeah,
I think that's a great answer.
What do you think? What's your answer?
My answer is honestly just a true, not gunslinger, but a true playmaker at the QB position. I mean, because in today's NFL anymore, man, you can get away with so much as a quarterback because they can't hit them. And so if you're a playmaker at the QB position, this league is just made for you, because receivers can't get touched. Offense, the quarterback can't get touched. Like, it's a crazy era of the NFL where it's just built for these almost backyard style guys, which is why Pat Mahomes, who's mixing the best of both worlds, is really thriving. And so I think, honestly, if Drew Lock develops, I think he's that missing piece that gets you. Do you think?
Okay, so you think he can be that?
I think he can be. Yeah, I think he has that in him. I mean, we saw it at Mizzou a number of times, and throughout the course of 4 years, I mean, he's playing on one of the worst teams in the SEC, and he brought them back into relevance in a way. He helped them compete in some big games against big defenses, and he didn't always do that, but there were times that he did. And he didn't always have a great supporting cast around him. He didn't always have elite receivers. I mean, his best receiver at Mizzou was an undrafted free agent who's now been cut like 5 times in his rookie year in the NFL. Yeah. So it's not like he's playing with 4 first-rounders like Tua Tagovailoa is at Alabama, right. But at the same time, he made plays. He pushed the ball downfield, and he saw the field exceptionally well as kind of like a gunslinger type guy. But he improved his decision-making at the same time, which is is a hallmark right now. So I don't know. I just think that if we had that at the QB position, just a guy who can go out there and sling it around, that we could really compete.
Well, and that's a good answer. And I think kind of what I was approaching it with is like, what do we not at all have on our roster? Which is, again, I know I'm not as big of a Josie Jewell fan as you are, but I still love the guy. But I think he's a core piece. We've talked about it a lot. We talked about it last year prior to even getting Fangio, that we think he's can be a Chris Borland kind of guy. Well over a year ago we talked about that. So I still think that there's a place for Josie to be awesome in this defense.
Right. But
we just are lacking that. It's not on the roster as that athletic middle linebacker that could really, really change the identity of our defense in the middle. So I'm hoping that you're right, and I think that there's a possibility that we've got the guy that you're thinking we're missing here, just waiting for him to heal up and waiting for the right opportunity to play him, which, again, that's another reason to be excited.
Right. 100%, man. So it's on to the next one. It's on to the next week. We've got to see more of this positive that we've been talking about, the nuggets that we're taking away. We need the Broncos to string it together. That's what we need to see in this next game against Jacksonville. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that next week we're talking less about the NFL draft and more about, okay, I mean, is there hope? Can we do this? Can we make this happen? What are we what are we looking at as the new positives coming off a win, hopefully? So Absolutely. And you know what? That's where it's like I'm excited for this year for us to have some fun games. I don't think we're in a position, in a place to where we're probably going to be challenging for a title unless some dramatic, drastic things happen, which I'm not expecting. But I'm ready to see some good games. I'm ready for our offense to put up some of those points. I'm ready for a lot of that exciting action to happen, that I think we've shown enough signs that we can be a team that can score some frickin' points and do some fun things. So I'm ready for some good games. You know what? I'm ready for this season to just, again, lay the groundwork with a new coaching system, new schemes, and just give us something to be excited about, that our team's trending in the right direction. That's what I want. And that's maybe where I separate and differ from a lot of Broncos country right now that's freaking out and panicking and wanting to sell the farm. Is I want some pieces that are solidified, and so far we got it seemingly in the coaches. We've got it in some positions across the board on offense and defense. We even got it on freaking special teams. It's looking like Spencer's going to be a good freaking kick returner. Oh yeah,
we didn't even mention that in this episode. So I'm excited about what we do have. I'm excited about the longevity of this team, man. I'm excited about the story arc that we're on. It doesn't need to be this chapter, but I'm also having fun reading this chapter too.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're having fun reading this chapter with us, man, we really appreciate all of you. If you're sticking around listening to the entire episode, Brandon and I just really appreciate that. And we appreciate your support for the podcast. We appreciate you going on. And if you take the time to write a review, leave us a rating, subscribe to us, share the episodes with your friends, share them on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share the snips, share the Order 66 clips of Dalton Reisner. I know Dalton followed the show on Twitter, which is pretty awesome. So super cool to be part of this with all of Broncos country, and Brandon and I just love doing it. We love talking Broncos football, and we want to engage with you. So if there's something that you want to talk about on the show, if you got a fun Star Wars award or something like that, hit us up, and don't let us be the end all be all here. We want to engage with you guys and have some fun together on this ride that is the Denver Broncos.
Absolutely. And we just appreciate you guys, and we want this is more of an organism. And yeah, we're kind of facilitating it, but we want you guys to grow it. We want you guys to engage in it. We want this to be something for all of us. You know, we're having a blast talking about it. Gives us a reason to kind of come together and like somewhat semi-professionally talk about this passion of ours. So we thank you all for giving us that reason, but we also want you to engage with it and shape it and help us grow it into what you want it to be and what the community needs, you know? So again, thanks everybody for hanging out. This has been Sayre Bedinger and Brandon Keckler. And as always, God bless and go Broncos.